Welcome into the Just Basketball Show for Friday, July 7th. I am Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. Thanks again to Dillon and Jake Stevens for producing. If you haven't already, subscribe and follow on your podcast platform of choice. 5-star reviews only. And please go subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not yet either. I want to remind you, too, that you can support us by going to the link below. We have a partnership with our friends at Homage who make ultra-comfortable specialty apparel with NFL, NBA, MLB, WNBA, WB, Nickelodeon licenses, a ton of great stuff for their WWE if that's your jam. To click the link, some of the money from your purchase comes back to support the Just Basketball Show, so please go do that. Brendon, a lot to get to today. We're going to focus on the Dallas Mavericks, do a case study. We're going to talk about early summer league notes. And we're going to talk about the Las Vegas Aces, who might just be too damn good for everybody else.
When you say case study, it makes it sound a little bit like homework. Is that how you feel about the Dallas Mavericks?
No, let's just dive into it. I don't feel like they're homework, but I think it is like a team we have not talked about barely at all. But I think have now had a real interesting offseason. Let's run through the moves. They bring back Kyrie, 3 years, 126, 3-year player option. Was low enough year over year to keep the full MLE open for them. They, on the 5th, acquired Grant Williams in a sign-and trade, or in the process of doing so, 4 years, $54 million deal for Grant. I think that's a great price. That cost them 3 second-round picks, a Reggie Bullock, and a pick swap, with the pick swap going to the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs, by the way, done a good bit of business this offseason. Instead of spending their cap space, just taking on contracts and players other teams don't want. And they got like Jetty Osman and Reggie Bullock and Lamar Stevens out of it to provide depth. So, like, honestly,
still should have given Austin Reeves an offer sheet, but neither here nor there.
Neither here nor there, but should have given Austin Reeves a fat offer sheet and really messed with the Lakers. Have signed Matisse Thybulle to an offer sheet. The Blazers, though, have matched, but I liked the idea of going after Thybulle. They shredded Davis Bertans' salary. Still came away with Derek Lively II, Olivier Maxence Prosper. He's French, so like I'm just winging it. We're just going to call him OM. I feel like we need a good nickname for him, but... I
mean, Omax, that's what people call him.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
I love that has the French name and then also went to Marquette, which is also a French word, as his school. Just a good branding opportunity.
Yeah.
Dallas, not so French, but it's okay. He should have ended up in New Orleans.
Yeah, Omax to them in the draft. Really like this because they get Rashawn Holmes in a trade as well. And they re-signed Dwight Powell to like a relatively, I think, cost-effective deal. Obviously still Luka Doncic.
Important.
So, Brennan, I ask you this. How did they – this is, I think, the big question what we think about with Dallas, and so I want to start with this. Did they get closer to building a more ideal Luka Doncic centric team for the 2023-24 season? Are they closer to the ideal version of that now?
I think I've lost track of what the ideal version of that is a little bit, and that's part of what makes this so interesting. Like I was very, I want to say surprised. I don't know if I was surprised, but just last year, the way that his game continued to go in the wrong direction, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I think that he has slowed things down. They were 30th in transition offense this year. They ran 3% of the time, 3% less when Luka Doncic was on the court. Like, we'll get into some of that stuff. That is not a great trend for him. And like even down to JaVale McGee, who they signed it felt like a pretty solid, like ideal role man for Luka, which has been a key ingredient when he was coming up as a prospect and early on in his career, and then just didn't play JaVale McGee. And obviously, it's hard to separate the Jason Kidd aspect of all of that. So it's going to be an adjustment for Luka. He has more scoring between Kyrie. Seth Curry actually also got signed, who I don't think made our list here, to the biannual exception.
Oh, yeah.
And Jaden Hardy, who came along toward the end of last season and is a G League Ignite prospect they got in the second round of last year's draft, who I think is pretty good and probably will be playing more. So, like, there's a world in which his usage can go down and he can start to settle into more of a typical early career Real Madrid type of Luka role. The question is, does he want that? Is the rest of the team good enough to convince him to take his hands off the wheel a little bit? And did they balance it enough defensively to make all of that worth it. So I guess my answer is I think that when they didn't get a center on draft night, Chris, like we knew they wanted DeAndre Ayton. There's been some other names that have come up. I think Clint Capella with that 10th overall pick was a hot kind of rumor around draft time. Once they didn't get that, maybe they still will, but for now, I do kind of like this team as a little bit more switchable, which I think is probably one of the better ways to defend with Luka on your team by adding Grant Williams, keeping Maxi Kleber, etc. And again, with that offensive balance that they should have both in the starting lineup and the bench, he shouldn't have to do as much. But I guess I'll pass it back to you by asking, like, how much, we don't know this, but do you anticipate that will happen? Or do you think Luka is one of these guys like a James Harden or whoever else, LeBron even, who that's just what they want to do? And you can get them whatever you want around them, but that's just what that's how they're going to play. Do you think Luka is in that group, or do you think there's still a chance at like saving him, so to speak?
I mean, there's nothing in his track record and how he's played since he's come into the league that suggests that he wants to be anything different than what he is. He wants to be on the ball superstar Luka Doncic. I also understand that, right? Like, he's been incredibly successful. He is one of the most singular talents we have in the league, and he still does like a pretty good job of getting other guys involved and empowering them to some degree by the shots he creates for them, and he's been a magician. And it's like, I understand to a certain extent how you turn an offense over to him. I think in 10 years ago, I think we've even talked about this. This is a guy that I think could have led his team to something deeper than he has if the level of talent is there. But I think that style of play isn't super perfect and a super great fit for the version of the NBA we're in. And secondly, I do a full year of Kyrie with him from a basketball sense is going to just maybe organically push him out of that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, they had the best half-court offense in the NBA last year, 30th in transition offense. Like, that doesn't even feel possible. And they also don't offensive rebound because they play super small. Maybe that changes if they do pull off a trade for a center, which, again, I want to talk about. I don't think Lively is going to be somebody we should peg as a difference maker in year one. Raw rookie bigs rarely are. And we know, Powell was already there last year. JaVale was already there last year. Maybe it's Rashawn Holmes on the offensive end to help a little bit, but I don't think he's playable at the highest levels in the playoffs and everything else. So they're not getting easy points to your point. And so I think there is a case to be made. Like, I was kind of going hard on one side of it, but like there is a case to be made that they don't need to change, right? But like Luka having a 36+% usage rate and a 40+ assist rate, that's just going to be what their team is, and it probably is that. But I guess I just wonder how they can continue to evolve, because one, that makes him a worse defender, and I actually think he has the potential to be a pretty good defender, and two, they just added Kyrie Irving, and all that he is a shot creator offensively. So you probably do want to cut off a little bit of the diet of what Luka's been doing into Kyrie's plate. You know what I mean? So I guess I don't think they ever figured anything else out last year more than just sort of your turn, my turn. We broke down a couple of their games in detail toward the end of the year. So I know, we were both watching them, and like, they scored a lot, but it wasn't as if they built out this awesome, sexy offense around those two dudes. So can they do that? Is Jason Kidd the guy? I don't really know. And that's kind of where my concern comes, is like, yes, there's a version of this team where Luka can balance himself a little bit more, even if he is always going to have a high usage. But like, what does that actually look like? And do the pieces that they have accomplish that?
So what I would say is to be an optimist about Dallas for a second. I think this roster just does kind of organically make more sense and just like logically fits together better. Like the puzzle pieces actually kind of click into place to me more than they did last year, more than they have in a couple years with Luka. Like, I think they've gone out and gotten like actual real players for now, but also a little bit for later. And I think the for later part is, I think, kind of worth hitting on a little bit later. But you bring in Grant, who will play as a big for you. Doesn't rebound, really. Like, he's a below-average rebounder for his position every year of his career except one in terms of rebounding missed shots.
Yeah, they have no rebounding on this team.
It's like it's a real issue, and I wonder if a tweak would be. You remember how like the Thunder went out of their way to kind of say at times like Steven Adams boxes out for Russ so Russ could get rebounds. I wonder if they'll just like try to like do that with Luka and Kyrie. Be like, hey, let the guards get the rebounds and they can go. But both those guys like to play really slow, and I don't think that's always the best thing either. So that's a whole other thing. We'll need to see how it develops when the basketball happens. But you get Grant. You still have Tim Hardaway's junior contract to do something with if you want to. You have a good amount of wings. You're a bigger Josh Green fan than anybody that I know, but they didn't have to give him up or anything like that in these trades. Like, this roster makes sense now. Like, it just does. And Thibault would have been another really nice piece for them. I'm curious to see.
Yeah, let's talk about the Thibault part, because I was less sold on that. I guess I understand, like, when you're talking about perimeter defense, it's sort of like 99.8% of the league, and then Thibault. You know what I mean? So I get that it's not just like what's the difference between him and X. Like, I'm aware of what the difference is, but I guess like if you're saying there's 25 minutes per game for a guy like that, why would you not just play Josh Green, who I think does a lot of the same things, even though he is smaller and not quite as intense of a defender, because he can be a ball mover and shooter on offense in a way that Thibault's just not going to. Like, I just looked at their rotation and their roster, to your point, especially after getting Omax, and that move felt a little bit to me like we don't have anything else to use our mid-level exception on, but we don't want to go into the season not utilizing every possible resource, so this guy can do something we sort of need. Let's just try it. And maybe they already knew Portland would match because they threw a bunch of junk in there. I don't know if you saw that, Chris, like the early advances, a lot of the stuff that Austin Reeves got and Thibault has on this deal too. That feels like one where we knew they were going to match, but we just wanted it anyway. And that makes me wonder if they even thought Thibault was that great of a fit on their team, considering they were only going to pay him like $8 million anyway.
Look, maybe not, but why I liked it in theory. Also, we did forget to say that Dallas did sign Dante Exum, who actually has been playing really well overseas and is now back. And I'm kind of happy for him that he's getting another chance, so that makes me a little bit happy. But the reason I kind of was bullish on the Thibault thing is that unless Luka's a different defender than we've seen, and unless Kyrie just suddenly like becomes a different player, which is not going to happen, you're just going to have you have Seth Curry, who's like another weak spot in defense. You just needed guys that could hold up on the perimeter for you and do stuff. And even if they were imperfect fits, I understand the bet on the uber talent you have offensively to figure that out just enough to make the defensive stuff work. Thibault is a specialist, like he just is. But I kind of understood, even if the price was maybe a little high for that, you might be able to play him in the playoffs. That to me is an understandable bet of just saying we need guys to cover defensively and be big and handle some of the stuff for Kyrie and for Luka and gives us the ability to maybe have some cover for these guys and for Seth Curry if you want to deploy him as a shooter.
So my thing is, I just don't think I don't think Thibault is like a person that you put in your defense if you're planning on switching a lot. And I do think they're planning on switching. And so that's kind of where it was a little bit of a head scratcher. I don't think Josh Green really is either. So, that's part of where you start to run into some issues. So let's get to this question because I think it speaks to some of what we're already talking about. What's their best five-man unit? Opening night, who's closing game one for Dallas?
Luka, Kyrie, Josh Green, Grant Williams, and I want to maybe just say Maxi Kleber. Which,
I think so too.
But there's clearly weaknesses in that, right? Like that's a very light rebounding lineup. It's funny that they added multiple centers, both when they brought back and when they traded for, when they drafted, and it still feels like they're looking for like an answered center, which we're gonna talk about. But Kleber gives you the ability to switch. He can handle some of that. If he's healthy, obviously a bit of concern for him of late, but he can be big and can switch. Grant can switch. They all kind of fit around. Like, those guys will all play really well around what Luka does. So, like, that to me would be the 5.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, if that's your main 5, I think what you're counting on is basically, can we run a little bit more? You know, can we juice our transition offense and basically just it's not even that crazy of a proposition for them. Can we be the best offense in the NBA? And that helps. Obviously, you know, you're limiting transition opportunities, all the things that, you know, the same reason Sacramento wasn't 30th on defense, even if their talent was a little ugly, right? Like, we know how that stuff can work. So I think that's the thing. And, like, we can talk about centers, but I don't love that if kind of all of this flowed outward from we need Kyrie and we're a little bit desperate because we're starting to wonder about Luka. If the end result of kind of all those moves is still, you know, we are basically the same type of team as we already were, but maybe just a better version of that. Like, maybe that's good enough, but it still sort of feels like they're building, and that's fine. And so I guess let's just have that conversation. Do you feel like they still need to make a trade for a center between now and, let's say, the deadline? Like, is it that urgent where it needs to happen by this year's postseason, or do you think they can cobble together with the guys they have and playing small and all this different kind of stuff a good enough team to be a little bit more patient, and maybe it's lively in year 2, or maybe they do kind of find some better stuff next summer rather than trying to rush it now, or whatever their other possibilities would be?
So I think they are signaling to us that they want to try to be a little bit patient and develop and build something a little more sustainable for Luka, is what I think part of this offseason is telling us, Brendan. Because not only do you have Josh Green, who's 22 years old, he's very young. You have Jaden Hardy, who showed some flashes last year, is playing Summer League. He's 21. So you have 2 really young guys there. You have Derek Lively, who's 19. And you have Omax, who's 21. So a little bit of an older rookie, but nonetheless a rookie. You have 4 guys there on your 15-man roster that skew younger, that skew not at their best right now. Theoretically, those are things you cash in for someone, right?
Yeah, sure.
I also don't think we know, like, who the next star to pop free is going to be necessarily. And I also think, like, if you're picking your fit between to play with Luka, then that's like also like I think it's like we're kind of guessing in real time, like, what's the perfect fit with Luka, and it might depend on how Luka wants to play and whatnot, right? But I think with the young guys they have, and then, you know, taking a 19-year-old center with their top pick, and taking a win, and taking getting another first round pick, and having Josh Green, and having Jaden Hardy, like, this is a team that is skewing towards development a little bit, and I like that plan. I think the key for them, if they want to, like, be competitive with Luka for a longer time, Luka's 24. I think we kind of forget that he's only 24 sometimes because he's already that good. But I think they're telling us, hey, we need to understand that we need to build something that isn't just going to satisfy Luka right now, but 3 years from now. I think that's kind of what we're seeing with this roster development a little bit. Kyrie is like the win now thing. Everything in Seth Curry is a win now thing. Rashawn Holmes is a win now thing. Lively and everything else is very much let's get some pans on the stove that are going to cook for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm not sure Seth Curry will play, if I'm being honest.
Well, but if they're gonna if he's like a change of pace, like shooter in certain games, or like Kyrie misses time, I don't hate it.
That's exactly the part of it, and it's not even a getting down the rabbit hole of Kyrie stuff. It's just he's in his 30s and gets hurt. So I think that's totally reasonable. There's a lot worse ways. He has the familiarity with the organization. That's fine. I just think the way I'm looking at their roster right now, it's kind of down between, like, who plays between Seth Curry, Omax, and Hardy. I think that's going to kind of be like night to night, week to week, month to month. Let me ask you this. So they still have the Tim Hardaway Jr. contract, which is just really not good. But it does descend, so it actually is 17.9 this year after it was almost 20 last year, and then it goes down next season in the final year to 16.2. They have Maxi Kleber's salary. They still have Rashawn Holmes' salary. So they also have the tools to make a trade right now. If they feel differently about this center thing, because there's still like Pascal Siakam rumors out there across the NBA, and you never know what comes loose after.
They sold JaVale McGee too, by the way.
Yes, exactly. So smaller salary, but they can trade him. So, and like we never know what's going to happen after the Dame and Harden trades. Like there was some Zubats might get traded stuff around free agency. It's like maybe the Clippers aren't done moving. Anyway,
so I'm just laughing real quick because I wanted to see what JaVale was making. Do you realize the last year of his deal is a player option for $6 million?
Yeah, that and the Marvin Bagley deals were like the people who signed those in the front offices should be tested for mental illnesses. Like it's a question mark.
Congratulations, JaVale McGee. You're this week's winner of You Got That Bag. Congratulations to you.
Well, he's last July's winner of You Got That Bag. But
yeah,
yes,
but like when you're going to be 37 years old and can only play like 20 minutes a game and you have a player option for $6 million, feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. So, point is,
sorry.
No, you're good. Do they trade? So their offer on draft night was, I believe, Hardaway Jr., JaVale, and Rashawn Holmes for DeAndre Ayton. That the Suns said no to, which they should have. That's an awful offer. Would you maybe do Josh Green in the JaVale McGee slot? They have to pay Josh Green. He's extension eligible right now. They have to pay him next year in restricted free agency. We just talked about they have a little bit of a jam on the wing now with Hardy and Omax and everybody else, Grant. So would you switch that out if it meant getting DeAndre Ayton?
No, I would not want. I don't think that's the player. I'd be looking at Siakam.
Okay.
I would be. Zach Lowe was talking to John Hollinger on his pod this week, and it made me think that like there's a better chance than I thought of for a Siakam trade. And I understand Siakam. There's like the whole thing that Siakam, like there was reported that he's not going to sign with another team, and that complicates the value. And it wouldn't be surprised based on what we know if Toronto's like value proposition for one of these for Siakam is like absurdly high, even if he has 1 year on his deal.
Yeah.
I would really be being like, okay, like what can we get, and what is like the way we can finagle this without giving up too much of our future stuff. Yep. But can we do like 2 picks and like matching salary? And is that enough? Do we need to give like Omax in there or Lively in there to complete it? I know that they're hard capped now, so you have to consider that as well. But like, can you go get Siakam? Would be the one that I would be like, can I get that? Because thinking about him as a small ball 5, as your starting 4, he will increase your tempo a little bit. That guy loves to get rebounds and go. He's a good screener. You can have him do a lot of the defensive wing stuff you're going to need to navigate the West next year. If you're going to play the Lakers, you're going to play the Clippers if they're healthy. If you're going to play the Suns, like you kind of need that guy. And I think, the 3-point shooting, that it would be a different role for him than what we've seen in Toronto, but that would be the talent bet I would make. And if you roll in with a big 3 of Siakam, Luka, Kyrie, and you can keep enough, if you can get this deal done and thread the needle of trading away some of the guys you don't super love, but keeping the ones you think can help you, then I'm all for it. I don't know what Toronto would want necessarily, but my first offer would be something that they probably say no to, which is like, okay, like we're not offering you Josh Green, we're not offering you Derek Lively. Like I would try to finagle that in a way that lets me kind of keep some of these other things dry. I don't know how realistic that would be though.
I think that's it's not a perfect fit. It's a great fit, and it's probably the best that they're going to be able to do. I think it kind of keeps this identity of their team intact in a way that, I do think that there are just certain realities, like any superstar, like that you have to confront with Luka. You're not going to want him, as far as what we've seen, like guarding high-level players. You probably want to switch. You need guys who can do things with the ball but don't need the ball. And so I think Siakam makes a lot of sense. They were a 38-win team last year, and yet they actually were projected to win 42 games based on their point differential and everything else. So they got a little unlucky in some of the close games, especially down the stretch. They lost to Charlotte twice, and we're not going to relitigate the should they have sat their guys for the bench for the draft pick and everything, but it is important context. Do you think this is a team who can get into the top 6 in the West this upcoming season, Chris?
The West is going to be a bloodbath, is what I want to say first. I think you should expect a lot of craziness in the West next year, but I think my answer would be a tentative yes that it's possible. I don't know if I would feel comfortable betting on it, but here's who they would have to jump to get to 6. The Thunder, who I really like, but are they going to be significantly better than the 10th seed this year? I don't think we know that. We're going to talk about Chet soon. Pelicans, Wolves, Lakers, Warriors. That's not an insignificant grouping of teams to jump, right? We've raved about the Lakers offseason. It's the Warriors. Maybe Zion will finally be healthy. Lord knows. Then above that, you have the Clippers, you have the Suns, you have the Kings, you have the Grizzlies, you have the defending world champion, the Denver Nuggets. Ever heard of them? So it's not going to be easy for them to get to the top 6, but I think it's possible. I would like them better next year on paper right now than probably Minnesota for sure. I think probably more than the Thunder, just because the Thunder skew a little bit younger. But there's a lot of things that need to click right. And even Brendan, even the Siakam trade that I mentioned, I should note that they can't aggregate Rashawn Holmes' salary, which you might want to use in a trade like that for 2 months. So this isn't even something they can totally pragmatically do at this current moment. So it's even complicated them to some degree to make some of these trades that we might want them to make, or they might have the opportunity to make at least for a little bit longer. How do you feel about it? Do you think this is a top 6 team in the West next year?
I don't think it's a lock that they're going to get there. No, I mean, I think that would be a little crazy to comfortably say. I think the center thing is a real issue. I don't think there's a way around that. Dwight Powell is always kind of been the same guy, but now he's an older version of the same guy. And JaVale couldn't get on the court, and then there's a rookie and Rashawn Holmes who basically didn't play basketball last year. So I like that. Whether it's a Luka team or an anybody else team like that, you can't say about a team that just has one position that's a huge question mark that they're going to be a lock to do anything. I mean, that's an overly reductive way to put it, but I think that's just a huge thing. And some of these guys are young: Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, Omax, even Grant. Betting on them to be consistent and get this team to a higher floor is hard for me. So I think it's a better roster. I think it's a deeper roster. I don't think it's, a contending roster yet. So that's kind of how I'd put it. My last comment on these guys is, like you mentioned, Luka's only 24. Agreed. Obviously, you always kind of have to couch it in that, but most 24-year-olds don't have a career where they're the same exact dude from 20 to 24. And he's been the same exact dude for most of that time. And so I want to see the evolution of his game more than any other thing about this team. He's gotten a little more efficient. I get that. I'm sure he's improved. I don't, he seems like he's a little better in the post than he used to be, even though the fall away doesn't really happen. He's better getting to the line, all that stuff. But I just need to see him evolve in the way that young players typically do. It seems like he's settled into something that by happenstance or by, choice is not produced a high level of winning. They have given him a lot more now. So I hope that next step is what we see this year from him, because they're going to go as far as he takes them, regardless of a lot of this other stuff.
Yeah, he's number one. If I had a list, if we were making that list, I think that would come into mind of guys that get pushed out of your comfort zone a little bit and would benefit from it. He's very high up there in just terms of getting challenged and made better in that way, and I think that's a thing a lot of superstars do go through in different ways. But I want to just hit. Can we hit quickly on the Grant Williams thing specifically, because we didn't really touch on him much. I just think this was a really good. I just think this was a really good bit of business. 4 years and $54 million for him is a very reasonable price. Gave up 3 seconds and the other stuff. Like, they gave up Reggie Bullock, who, like, can't shoot threes for the first several months of the season, and then is just kind of fine. Like, that's just kind of the Reggie Bullock story, as a basketball player at least. Grant's going to be big. He allows them versatility. He's going to screen, competitor, defender. Like, I just think this is, like, he is, like, a pretty, to me, like, perfect pair if you're going to, at this price especially, to play with Luka as a forward. So I just thought the Grant bit of business for them, considering the price in terms of assets given up and the contract they gave him. I think just it's a really nice deal for them to go get a player who probably didn't even play enough at the end of Boston, in my opinion.
It'd be fun to see an even smaller lineup with no Kleba and Grant at the 5, and just all the guards and wings, and just score 140 points per 100 possessions.
And you don't get a single rebound.
Probably not. I guess Luka is a decent defensive rebounder, but other than that, yeah, probably.
But if
not.
you're like,
no, I think it's good, and he's young too, right? Like you were talking about with kind of a trend of some of their other moves is like they didn't break the bank for an older guy. Grant is coming onto his second contract. He's a little older coming out of school, but nothing crazy, and he'll be on the same timeline as Luka. They can keep him for the next 10 years if they want to.
Yeah, it's a nice bit of business for them. I think they're in a better spot. I think would you say you would feel they're in a better spot than they were, but there are still some significant questions about what this next year looks like?
Yeah, and that's how a lot of teams are. I mean, this is the age of parity in the league. Like, there's not, every team has 2 superstars like it felt for a while. This is 1 superstar, 1.5 superstars, and then who's deep and who's balanced enough to make it through 4 rounds. And they have questions just like everybody else.
All right, let's move on to Summer League. Brendan, I'm going to get a little spicy here at the top.
Okay.
I wouldn't rule out Chet Holmgren winning Rookie of the Year. If I just wouldn't. Like, I know Vic, our guy Vic, his name is not Wemby, it's Vic. He's the odds-on favorite at any sports book you go to, including our friends at BetMGM. But if he doesn't play the 65-game requirement because it's like they're handling him carefully and all that stuff, and maybe Chet gets handled carefully too, considering he's coming off a foot injury that cost him an entire season. Maybe that he doesn't get there as well, or he picks up a knock or something. But boy, these Summer League, the movement from Chet, the way he plays, how skilled he is, it's kind of like been a reminder of how special he might be. It's made me more bullish on the Thunder. And if I was going to have to throw money on someone not named Victor Wembanyama to win Rookie of the Year, I think I would pretty clearly be throwing it at Chet.
He just looks really polished, honestly.
He looks bigger, and he looks bigger. He looks like he added like the necessary, not all of it, but he definitely looks like he added some of the necessary muscle that needed to. I think they've said he's at 2 bills now.
Congrats. Yeah, look, I think, first of all, at BetMGM, Scoot is second, which is... I know like that type of player tends to win it a lot because they just are in a position to produce, and like numbers tend to kind of just get you there. But Chet's going to also put up numbers. Like, he's probably going to start for this team and is going to be a double-double machine, I think. But yeah, I as far as what he's looked like, it seems like everybody hates him out there. I don't know why. They're all like determined to just embarrass him. They're Micah Potter, who is a dude I did not know the name of, putting up a 2 small. Just
okay.
Weird. It might be a race thing. Like, we can just confront reality here, but also like it's strange.
Everyone, the 2 small might have jumped the shark a little bit, if we're being honest. Like, everyone does it now.
Yeah,
and I'm just
it was
like,
Patrick Beverley.
Yeah, it's the. I think the jump the shark thing has been a little bit ruined.
Overused.
I think Pat Bev and Russ, and it just everyone hits the 2 small. It's like I think the only people that should get to use it now, Russ, just because like I think of it as like a Russ thing to some degree. And I think like really tall guys should use it, like, ironically.
Jimmy uses it a lot. He's a good one.
Well, Jimmy just cracks me up.
Most people are smaller than him, at least kind of physically, even if not height-wise.
Yeah.
I want Nikola Jokic to throw it out one time.
That'd be
the number 1 draft pick for my dream user.
I mean, anyone who's like 7 feet should just do it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
Vic,
like game one. It's like, yeah, no shit. Everybody is smaller than you.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
but it's like I need him to do it after he dunks on like Jakob Poeltl, and it's just like, oh, okay, or like anybody. Here's the rookie of the year odds from BetMGM.
Yeah.
Victor Wembanyama -200, Scoot +350, Chet +500, Brandon Miller +950, Amen Thompson +1400. Grady Dick +4,000. Maybe if we had a leader for silly dance TikToks, Grady Dick would be like -5,000 for most of those.
He already would have won it. They would have just given it to
I'm
him.
I'm just saying like
early.
more silly dancing TikTok videos.
Yeah, that's a lock. All right. Yeah, I think with Chet, the thing and him being bigger does matter here, but I think like it's also just a reminder that whatever your impression of him was from seeing his frame, and I know they lost earlier than expected in that tournament, and he had some, I don't even want to say up and down games, but it felt like people were looking for reasons in that draft to poke holes in his game.
Yes.
He's a forceful physical player, even if he's like a thin guy, even if he has the high hips and some of the, Vic-like body problems that make him a question mark to stay healthy, to guard in the post, and obvious things that he'll have to work through as a pro. That doesn't mean that he's not a physical, forceful player. He was a monster offensive rebounder at Gonzaga. He blocked shots like nobody's business. He shot 81% at the rim in college.
Ridiculous.
Like, he's not, one of these guys who goes and stands in the corner for 3 years and then maybe he'll make a dunk once or twice. Like, that is not what Chet Holmgren is going to be. And it seems like he's also rounding out his game a little bit. Like, he's facing up, he's attacking closeouts, he's, putting on the hezzy and the kind of pull-up mid-range jumper stuff and fake dribble handoff into a drive and finish or drive and pass. Like, he simultaneously fits into how Oklahoma City already want to play, and I think he really will balance them out in a really positive way because he is a real center and plays like one.
The two-man game with him and Shea is going to be insanely fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be incredibly varied, right? Like, we're going to get a lot of weird twists and turns with this. The handoffs, to me, I think are going to be pretty there. I think we're going to get, like, who gets them inverted at times if you want to get really funky. He's just going to really make this Thunder team incredibly fun to, like, watch. Like, we already are, I think, Brennan, owners of lots of Oklahoma City Thunder stock. But I think like, Chet being back and kind of getting, for me at least, refreshed on what he is just kind of pushing them up my hypothetical league pass rankings next year. If I had to say like two younger teams that skew younger that I'm most excited for to watch next year, I think it's like them and the Pacers that I think I'm weirdly kind of amped up to spend a lot of time watching next year.
I was hyped for the Orlando Magic, and then they had a weird offseason. So it's going to be some Joe Ingles.
Look, Joe Ingles can take his family to Disney and got $22 million. Congratulations to Joe Ingles.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more about the second thing, if I'm being completely honest. Probably the $22 million over the Disney. Like, he's Australian. He doesn't care about anything American like that. He wants to go back home.
Yeah, I don't even think they have. They don't even have Australia at Epcot. I don't think so.
That's true. I don't think they do. Yeah, I think Chet's going to be a breath of fresh air for this team. I think he's going to play minutes right away. Maybe he struggles with fouls. Maybe he struggles defending in the post, but congratulations. Like, most young bigs do that, even if they're not, underweight and everything else. My question on him is, so Oklahoma City had the 30th, so the worst at-rim efficiency in the league. They actually had one of the best frequencies. They just couldn't make anything, which was one of the weirdest, like, statistical trends in the league. And then defensive rebounding, they were bottom 3. So, like, I do think there's something to be said for, and other people have already made this point, like, don't pencil in Oklahoma City to just win 45 games next year. They might play guys who are coming into the rotation more, and it maybe ends up being, like, close to 500 again. But I look at those two things, at least statistically, and I'm like, if they're better in the paint and play bigger, that makes them a better team too. So, I don't know. I think he could make them, like, improve their team, and they stayed really healthy. Like, I don't know how much that'll all happen in wins and losses, but I think in year one, he could make them better too, instead of just being like kind of a cool thing to gawk at on League Pass, you know?
He is going to make them better. I would be shocked if he doesn't make them better. I don't see how he's not going to with the rim pressure, with the dunking, with everything that we know that Chet can do. He's going to make them better. I just can't see a world where that doesn't happen. This is someone who has a skill set they need. It's at a position they just haven't spent any other money or draft resources on, really, right? Like, they've just been like, what are centers? Chet's now their unorthodox answer to having a traditional 5. That's what this is.
Yeah. You didn't appreciate the half a season of Al Horford? That wasn't. I saw them play. I watched the Al Horford-led Thunder for like the 30 games he played for them in an empty COVID gym in like January 2021. Very strange experience. It was like Trey Mann, Al Horford 2-man game. I don't think Shea was playing that night, and just zero fans.
Weird stuff. Don't miss that era.
No.
All right,
let's go on to Brandon Miller.
So
let's go on to Brandon Miller.
Okay, I have not been super impressed, and it's Summer League. I wouldn't like read too much into this, but not super impressed with what we've seen from Brandon Miller so far.
Well, I kind of have been, so I kind of want to hear you be pessimistic, or like, just why?
He just has. I think he looks a little bit uncomfortable. He's had a lot of he's had 15 fouls in over 2 games. Like, that's a lot of fouls.
He's using up that 10 foul Summer League limit.
Yeah, he had 6 points on 4 shots on Wednesday.
Yeah, I had 7 assists though. I mean, like, to me, so I guess it's like, I think that there's a temptation in Summer League to grade people on the curve of you should just be better than everybody else. And I think that there is sometimes a thing where the player is still the player, even if they have more like talent or athleticism than the other guys on the court. Like, could Brandon Miller, if he had a straight line drive to the basket, dunk on every Summer League defense that he faces that isn't, the Spurs? Yes, but he can't dribble better than he could 3 months ago when we saw him in the tournament. That didn't just magically happen. He's still an off-ball player. He's still a defensive stopper who's growing into his body and growing into his athleticism and everything else. So I just look at, he's making the right play a lot of the time. Like, I think actually, to me, the unselfishness matters because the team is kind of crappy around him. James Bouknight is doing his ISO stuff, and they got McGowan's who's like trying to fight for a roster spot and everything, and he's just happy to keep it moving, you know what I mean? And then if there's an open 3, he'll take it. And I don't think he's getting lost on defense. I know they gave up a bunch of 3s in the first game because Julian Champagnie is the new like Joe Harris, apparently, the guy on the Spurs. But to me, it's just that. It's like he's going to be an off-ball shooter and a defensive difference maker, and that's kind of all they're going to really want to see from him in year one, and he's doing that so far. So that's it.
Fair. His teammates certainly are like shooting him out of this. I think that's probably a part I'm not putting enough stock in this, Brendan. It's just, I don't know. I just, where I'm kind of just like swooning over Chet, this just kind of left me like a little bit wanting. And I wasn't the biggest Miller guy coming into the draft either. Like, I was much more a Scoot guy at 2 than I was a Miller guy, even if I get the size and all of that.
That sounds just rude from you. So because you like Scoot more, he sucks at Summer League? Where's that coming from?
Well,
be nice to Brandon.
Okay, that's
it's
not really
like
what I mean.
One letter off from my name. I gotta
true.
back up my guy.
That's true. What I would say is I think Summer League is often. What I would say that doesn't mean. Here's the thing. I don't put too much stock into this either. Is the other thing I would say. I think Summer League matters. And then maybe this is unfair, maybe this is wrong. I would love for you people can tell us what they think about this. I tend to put stock into Summer League when guys really pop and dominate. I don't, or they look like totally a fish out of water and just look like they physically can't hang. That tells us, when it's one of those extremes, I think it tells us something. When you're just kind of there and your team situation isn't really helping you, and it's not like you're running superset stuff, you have no chemistry with guys, then I'm just sort of like, okay. If this was like year 2 for him, like he came back and played like next summer and he did this, I would be a little bit more concerned. But this is rookie year. Wasn't there like some reported injuries at the end of his time at Alabama? That kind of he still played through it, but it was hurt. His teammates are just shooting a ton. That's not helping him. I don't put like a ton of stock into this, even if like I have not loved totally how he's played. But I don't look at this and say like, oh, he's like a bust. That's unserious commentary for going there. I just think this has been Summer League is like a very hard way to like take anything seriously. I think unless guys really pop and dominate, or guys just clearly are physically just outmatched and can't hang athletically.
Yeah, to that point, I mean, the last thing I'll say on him is I do feel like there is a physical observation you can make of a dude who maybe looked big in the SEC. Does he still look big? Brandon Miller still looks big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it's odd. Like 6'9" is 6'9" no matter what court you're on, but like the dude is going to be fine physically in the NBA, and I think that should help him adjust early on, is he's not going to just be getting bowled over by other guys. All right, you had an other favorite that I want to let you cook on.
I have one other favor that I should have put in there, but I didn't get around to putting in the document. That's Keegan Murray, because I feel like he maybe should have led our Summer League stuff. This has been if you want to talk about someone
he shouldn't be playing Summer League. That's why he doesn't get to lead it.
Okay, but
get out of
there.
The point. It's just because it's on your home court. You're not going to play in Vegas. Show off. I'm just kidding.
Okay, but kind of not wrong. But this is the kind of Summer League thing where he shows up and it's like, oh, right, he's too good for this. He has clearly improved. He is clearly a serious basketball player. That's like the value of this. And he's just honestly, watching Keegan Murray get to cook has been fun. He had 29 in the first game. Then he had 41, 5, and 4 blocks and was 6 of them from 3 in the second game. He has been just all around awesome. He's all first team rookie last year. He's been insane in Summer League. Looks like he just is way too good to be there, and that to me would give me optimism if I'm the Kings for next year. Just the fact that he has kind of dominated Summer League would make me feel just a little bit. Just if I was a Kings fan, I have a little pep my step about my Keegan Murray stock going into next year.
His ball handling being where it is heading into year 2 when he's already 6'9" is pretty crazy. Like he has like a stop and pop. He has a step back 3. He can get downhill and keep his dribble low to the ground and actually, get momentum going toward the basket, even if he's not fully ready to get all the way there and finish yet. And he just has a toughness that I feel like was undersold coming out of the draft.
Yeah.
I think he was kind of billed as this kind of wallflower wing who's just going to go stand in the corner and maybe over time he'll kind of develop some defensive chops and round out it. Maybe he'll get a mid-range jumper and this and that. It's no, that guy already wants to bang you and, fight through a screen, run you through multiple screens off ball and not run out of energy. He plays hard already and, already was making a difference in playoff games more than even Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes were. Murray was one of their more reliable dudes in that playoff series. So yeah, he's a good one. Mine are all really deep cuts that are kind of ridiculous, but Julian Champagnie, who I mentioned, Kai Jones, forcing myself to watch some Hornets Summer League. Kai Jones is an interesting, just play him for 25 minutes and he'll do some crazy stuff defensively guy. I don't know if he has an offensive pathway in the league yet. I don't know what he's going to be, but he's at least making good on the defensive playmaking, defensive turnover creation and everything. And also I feel like the Warriors are cheating and they found their second Jordan Poole with Lester Quinones. Have you watched any of this dude's highlights or anything?
Yeah, it's a little what if we have Jordan Poole, who's maybe not quite as good as peak Jordan Poole, but isn't making an insane contract that's costing us lots of money in the luxury tax.
Should have traded Chris Paul for a forward. Or Poole for a forward instead of Chris Paul, I should say.
Well, you could just trade Chris Paul for a forward if you want to in a couple months.
Yeah, go get Siakam at the deadline or something.
Just Jaime Jaquez.
Yeah, I think you're just saying that to kiss up to Aram.
No, look. Here's the thing. I come through the prism of all NBA Summer League stuff with a lot of these guys having barely watched any college. I just like the way he's played in Summer League, and he's physical and he's tough, and he looks like he's not going to he feels like a Miami Heat Summer League guy.
If you can dribble and play through contact on both ends as a rookie, that will get you on the court. You know what I mean?
It's a big deal.
Even more than 3-point shooting. We always want to see every rookie be able to make threes, and it's for the Heat, is he going to play minutes in May? Probably not, but it's at least a good starting point, and he's older, so that makes sense. But
you got to just remember remember with the Heat, you got to assume that over him, you're going to have like some guy from Sioux Falls who've never heard of scoring like 25 a game in the playoffs. It's got to assume that's going to happen.
That's coming, so he'll be the backup.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very excited.
To geek out?
Well, just very excited for the second attraction to the Las Vegas Aces. Very excited for the real summer league to get going. I'm excited to go back. Maybe hopefully next year is my hope. Maybe me and you can do summer league up next year.
Yeah, let's do it.
You and I can walk from Thomas and Mac together again.
Hopefully not.
Look, cardio's good for you. Cut some, you just do a little cutting in Vegas.
Do you want to know the temperature in Phoenix right now, which is usually the same as Vegas, and that will dissuade you, Chris?
Sure.
It's 111 degrees.
Brother, I ran in like 80-degree weather yesterday, and it was humid, and I was dying a little bit.
80 is the low today. There's no, if you want to go for an outdoor jog in Phoenix in July, you got to wake up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and get out there pronto, and it's already going to be like 85.
I'm excited for you when the Women's Final Fours are next year to be in Cleveland, and for you to experience the Ohio version of insane weather, which is like, why is it snowing in March?
I'm down. I visited my friend in New York in March, and it was like sleety in like the last week of March, and I was honestly incredibly appreciative because it was already like 80 in Phoenix. So
all right, then you're gonna fit right in. Let's talk about Las Vegas Aces. Brendan, holy shit, this team's really good. Want to just hit you with some their offensive defense net rating right now. Okay, they have a net rating of 18.8, which means they're outscoring by teams by 18.8 points per 100 possessions. The second best net rating in the NBA is the New York Liberty, who have a net rating of 8.1. The Aces have an offensive rating of 113.7. The second best offense league is the New York Liberty at 107.9. Defensive rating of 94.9. The best defensive league is the Washington Mystics at 94.7. So they were within like less than a point, 0.2 of the best defense in the league. They have the best offense in the league. They have the best net rating in the league, and they're 16-1. They are 16-1 in 17 games played. And they don't feel like they have a weakness at all. This team legitimately feels, Brendan, just feels like a juggernaut. This team feels like the runaway favorite to win the title right now.
Did you watch that Aces Liberty game the other week?
I did, and I came away feeling not super. I would not come away from that game feeling super optimistic about my chances of beating the Aces if I was at Liberty after watching that game.
No. It was pretty ugly at times. Like, it really, really was. I just think the level of execution is at another level. I mean, and it's kind of crazy because you would think, I like the core four players have been together for a while now in Vegas. 2 years between Asia, Plum, Young, and Gray. But Candace Parker has fit right in. Alicia Clark has fit right in. Kia Stokes still does her job. It's just, it's a level that, like, it feels like this team has been playing together for a decade. This is legit one of my favorite basketball teams I can remember watching. Like, they're sick. Like, it's really crazy. And I feel like that Liberty team, the level of, I think it was Sabrina who we had on, tweeted after that game, like, or retweeted somebody, I don't know. It was going around of like, this is not a league with two super teams and everybody else. This is a league with one super team, one great team, and then everybody else. Like, the distance between the Aces and the Liberty is almost as much as the Liberty and the next best team, especially now that Brianna Jones went down from Connecticut and their season is going sideways a little bit. So it's just crazy. I mean, everybody can handle the ball. Everybody who plays can handle the ball. They all play with like an insane amount of force. Like, they just take it to you. They're physical. They can control the pace if it's slow, or they can be comfortable if it's slow. They can be comfortable if it's fast. And, like, strategically, schematically, whatever, I love the way that they go about offense because it kind of takes advantage of both of those things. Like, almost right away, and, like, I just watched the Dallas game, so some of that's in my head, and they had Crystal Dangerfield defending Chelsea Gray, which is like a 6-inch size advantage for Chelsea.
Sure.
And so, like, and then Asia had mismatches sometimes and whatever. Like, they were just trying to get quick post-ups or quick ISOs for those two. But if at the exact same time, whoever had the ball, there's something being set up weak side. So they can just flow right into a second side pick and roll, or a pin down or another post up into something, or there's a shooter open because the defense is just freaking out about all of that. And it's just so natural. And like they'll use the whole shot clock sometimes and still get an amazing shot. And like to back to that Liberty game, like New York's defense just had no idea what was going on a lot of that game. And they didn't have the personnel to execute it, and they just did not have the comfort level to try to keep up with what Vegas was doing. I mean, you have on here that they don't have a weakness.
It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. I think there is a theoretical weakness. The problem is I just don't think anybody in the W can match it, which is like a huge five who can punt, because they aren't the biggest team in the world, but who is that team? There really isn't anybody like that. Like against Dallas, and they were down at halftime, and they kind of had to scratch and claw. Dallas played them really physically. Tara McCowan is one of the biggest players in the league, and she was just smashing the offensive boards and finishing and everything, but it's like, and they still won by 7.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, what are you going to do?
But I even go back to that Liberty game, and it was just seeing like the different ways they could kind of exploit Sabrina, depending on who. Sabrina would just end up on an island against Chelsea Gray, and Chelsea Gray's like, I'm getting a bucket on you. I'm going to get an assist off of you. They had no answer for that, and they could just
shoulder
pick
down.
On these things.
Sabrina's on the ground. Yeah,
yeah, and it's a wrap. And like Sabrina's a very good player, but that's like a weak point they can press on defensively, and she just physically was not capable of handling the onslaught. And it's like you want to put her on Kelsey Plum, that means Chelsea Gray's attacking someone else off ball, or Plum's going to get into Sabrina and scoring her, because Plum's like a ridiculous player and has been like even better since coming back from the Achilles thing, which maybe isn't even talked about enough, considering we don't talk about women's sports enough. This like their only loss also was like they lost to Connecticut. Second game, they played in Connecticut 2 games in a row. They lost that game. Asia had like 5 of 10 in that game. DeWanna Bonner had 41. Like it took DeWanna Bonner having 41 on 6 of 23 shooting and 5 of 7 from 3 for them to win that game. Only 2 other players in that game, Brendan, for the Mystics were in double figures. Like that was just like Bonner went off and the Aces were just kind of like, okay, like we're in Connecticut again. Let's just like get out of here and go home. They didn't like the box score does not paint a real picture of like, oh, we're real up for this game, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that would have been the team. I actually think the Sun match up better against the Aces than the Liberty do now.
I agree.
Especially because if we're talking about a big center, like Brianna Jones was that. Unfortunately, speaking of Achilles tears, she suffered that, and so their team's just back to, they've always gotten the injury bug at the worst time and everything else. John Cole Jones just needs to be better if the Liberty are going to beat the Aces. She needs to be better, period. I don't know what's up with her this season. She's been frankly bad in a lot of games that I've watched them for her standard in terms of being a superstar addition. And it's mental lapses. It is not, she's not as involved on offense, and I understand that can bleed in. She's an MVP having to take a big sacrifice, but defensively she has to hold it down if the Liberty are going to have any chance in this stuff. And like the thing is, like, and to go back to that Dallas game or any of these things, even if you beat them with a certain thing, Bonner going off, Tierra McCowan smashing the offensive boards and keeping the game close and, being played physically. There was a bunch of fouls in that Wings game and everything else. Nobody in the WNBA can guard either Asia Wilson or Chelsea Gray one-on-one late in the game. They're going to get a good shot. And so it's just like you're picking your poison. I have some historical context here for you if you're interested, Chris.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of start wrapping this up a little bit.
All right. The starting lineup this year for the Aces, plus 27 per 100 possessions. Playbyplaystats.com, which is like a very geeky NBA stats website, has WNBA data going back to 2009, I want to say.
Okay.
From lineup data, shot data, everything. Like lots of stuff that is much appreciated compared to where we were even like 5-6 years ago. So they have lineups. So I'm not going to go back to like the Comets era and some of the stuff. I know there's been great teams prior, but this is basically the best lineup in the history of the WNBA that we're watching right now. Last year's Aces starters with Hamby, plus 18 net rating in the postseason. 2019 Mystics, which was like my previous favorite WNBA team ever, just filthy, plus 24. 2018 Storm, also pretty revolutionary with like 5-out stuff, plus 20. 2017 Lynx, which was like the best Minnesota team from their dynasty, plus 19 per 100 possessions. And then the 2014 Mercury, which is kind of thought of as like the best team in WNBA history. They have the best regular season record ever and won the championship in Griner's first year. They were plus 23 net rating per 100 possessions. So it's not just that the Aces are like eking out an advantage over those. They're like substantially better than the best teams we've ever seen in this league right now. And they have a good bench. And, Raquana Williams isn't even playing and everything. So, yeah. I mean, you're looking at 3 finals in 4 years if they make it. 2 championships back-to-back, which would be the first one in 2 decades in the WNBA. Mm-hmm. Nobody goes back-to-back in this league. And their whole core is locked up through next season, too.
Should note that 2 final things, I guess, to wrap this up. Right now, the BetMGM is as far as title odds. We talked about this when we did our Big W preview. The Aces are minus 225 right now. That is a shift in their favor. They are bigger favorites than they were to start the year. The Liberty are now plus 250. The Sun at plus 1,600. The Mystics at plus 2,500. The Dallas Wings at plus 6,600. Everyone else is plus 10,000.
Yeah. If the finals is the 2 super teams, I don't know if we're getting a close finals. That's where we are right now.
Yeah. And should just note that Jackie Young is flourishing, and she has a true shooting percentage above 70%. Right now, she has a true shooting percentage that is the equivalent of like a big player, of a center, a forward, someone who takes a lot of shots at the rim. This is a 3
like DeAndre Jordan. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like someone who just catches a bunch of dunks or like lays the ball in a bunch and just like doesn't do anything else. This is absurd what she's doing as a perimeter player and having that shooting percentage. She's like obviously not the focus of that team. It's Asia Wilson and Plum and Chelsea Gray, but like Jackie Young is like pretty damn good. She's
second, I think, in MVP among aces though. So she's and because of her defense,
Yeah,
like,
really good.
Yeah, she's crazy. I mean, and like it goes without saying, but this is a league where shot making is one of the utmost important skills because of the size situation for some of the players. You know what I mean? Like to be 6 feet tall and shooting 63% on twos is like, that just doesn't even compute.
No. Brendan, I guess on an MVP note, do you find it interesting that at least like some of the most recent ones we've seen still have Brianna Stewart as like the favorite to win MVP?
I kind of think she is the MVP. So no, I don't think it's crazy. Okay. I mean, I feel like I was trying to start some controversy and you didn't let me do it, but that's okay. She's more valuable to her team than any player in the league, and that's more a Liberty thing than anybody else thing, to be honest. But imagine where they'd be without her. They almost lost to the Mercury last night, and the Mercury are bad. And then Stewie had like 40. Like that's just she's. This is a little extreme, but some of the like box scores with her and that team this year have felt like Shohei Ohtani type of stuff, where it's like Stewie shot 75% from the field and scored 40, and the Liberty lost by 2. You know what I mean? Or barely won. Like that's kind of what it feels like.
I love all jokes about the Angels failing Shohei. Those are my favorite. Those are like the only good tweets. Maybe we'll get good threads out of them over on the new one. Brendan, all I can hope for is that when I see the Aces and the Liberty play in New York in August, that I get a competitive game or at least something cool. That's all I'm looking for.
It'll be fun either way. I'm jealous you're going. That'll be.
I'm doing. Nice. We're doing Gotham, NWSL game the night before, and then Liberty. So I'm going to be big Seafoam guy that weekend.
Yeah, that's true. Stock your closet with a color you never had before, and then you'll have a whole little wardrobe. Yeah,
I will be buying an NWSL jersey. Not a big basketball jersey person, big soccer jersey person. Kelly O'Hara is odds-on favorite enough for me to get that in that like a nice Gotham jersey. It. Would buy a Stewie jersey though, if I'm being honest. Might buy that. Maybe a good frame item.
Maybe a jersey. Yeah,
or like, at least get the orange hoodie. That's probably the move at the very least. Any other thoughts, Brennan? Are we done here? We wrapping up? We land in this plane.
We're good. We'll talk Aces more. There'll be more
Yeah.
time. I just had to geek out there. I mean, this team is crazy.
Ridiculous.
They're the closest thing to the Spurs of those mid 2010s that we've seen. I mean, it's not like you watch them and you're like, oh yeah, she coached there.
Yeah, turns out Becky Hammon's a really good coach. Over under 1.5 years before like we get a leak that an NBA team is trying to poach her.
Maybe they'll stop lying that they're trying to consider her because they lied about it for like 3 years and then she got tired of it. You think she'd be better than Chauncey Billups in Portland, mind you, or do you think the tokenism shit was
Brendan,
actually
you're
worthwhile?
speaking to the person whose like whole first and strongest Portland Trailblazers take, even before the Dame stuff, was like, I would have just fired Chauncey Billups and got a real NBA head coach.
Drives me crazy.
It's she would be like an upper echelon NBA head coach if she was coaching at the WNBA right now, or in the NBA right now. Excuse me. It's tough. Also, turns out they like just didn't really miss Liz Cambage. They've kind of been fine.
Yeah.
There's a great book to be written about the Aces, I think, in a couple of years. Like someone's should write like a really great book about the Aces. A lot of good characters. There's a lot of drama.
Getting Mark Davis on the record and just letting him go sounds like a nice reason.
Here's all the things I've spent money on that nobody knows about that gave us a competitive advantage.
And here's why I really love owning this team, because they have great players, and I'm really bad at owning an NFL team, so this makes me happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Asia Wilson, a much better investment than like Jimmy Garoppolo. That's where I would feel about that.
Becky Hammon, greater than Josh McDaniels. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right, let's end there. I'm Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks to Jake Stevens and Dillon Heiser. Back at you after the weekend. Maybe we'll get some more Dame scuttlebutt between now and then. But until next time, this is the Just Basketball Show. Enjoy the Summer League hoops. Scoot and Vic on Sunday. I think that might be worth tuning in for.